is up, guys? Welcome to the Improvement Season podcast. And before you spit out your coffee, protein shake, or energy drink, this is the Improvement Season podcast, and it's me, Mike Challis, the Pascal imposter, and on the other side we've got Superman Steve Hall. How's it going, Steve?
Got Magic Mike. That's the one,
Magic
right?
Mike, Super Steve. I love it. So
Super
good.
Steve, I'll take it. Yeah, what was I going to say? Yeah, this has been quite frequent now that you've come on, because it was only like a couple of weeks ago or something that you were last on, right? It feels like it wasn't that long ago, at least in my head.
Yeah, it was definitely.
You probably know better.
It's probably a month. It's not been long
Okay.
at all.
Yeah.
Because what was it? Yeah, there was it's definitely been a month or so for sure. Not too long.
I apologize for any background noise. There's still building work being done behind me, but I think it's at a level that's acceptable now. There was a period of time where it felt like someone was literally in the room with me hammering away. So it's much, much better than that. And normally this microphone's good at just picking up the things I want it to.
I think your sound setup's really good, because I can't hear it at all. But
Good.
you're always very self-conscious of it, aren't you? When you can hear it and you're not sure how much it's going through to the other side. So it's frustrating. And I think also when you've got, I don't know what the thickness of the walls is like, because you've got quite old houses, haven't you? So
This is Victorian, yeah, so it's very thin. Like I can hear, they're playing music, I can hear them. If they have a conversation in that room, they can probably hear me, not like every word, but they can definitely hear that. Like if they tried to hear, they could probably hear what I'm saying, which is not the best.
It kind of reminds me also, I think this is a very British thing, because sometimes you, in one part of your mind, you want to go over there and say like, can you turn the music down, please? And then the other side, you're kind of like, oh, no, I shouldn't. That's, I don't want to be rude. I want to be polite and stuff. And there's always this, battle in your head that you're kind of playing.
I'm normally like they have to do building work. That's fair enough. I totally get it. Like we have joint walls, and so it's going to make an unusual amount of sound, or an annoying amount of sound here. But I did message a few times, because now Ada's barking out there. She's such a nuisance. You can hear her, right?
Yeah.
Yes, there you go. She's just being herself. Anyway, so it's so distracting, actually. That's the worst of it. I can hear the building. I can hear that. It's so distracting. I have noise cancelling headphones on, and I just can't. I can't deal with it. I'll have to let her in if she doesn't subside in barking. She just seems to have learnt that's the way she gets her way. Anyway, where was I going with this? Yeah, so I did message. So we have new neighbours now. They're moving in, so they're having loads of building work done, because they're having it all redone. But I have met the female, the partner, the woman, whatever, who's moving in there. She gave me her number, so I could message if anything was up. And I have messaged her a few times to be like, it was really loud. Like I couldn't physically work in here because it was so loud and off-putting. So I had to do check-ins on my laptop downstairs a few times, because it was just so bad.
Wow. And I think I try to tell myself as well, is if it's a reasonable time of the day, so if it's like middle of the day, then you think that's reasonable. But if it's I don't know if it's antisocial or unsocial hours, like if it's maybe past 7 o'clock or past 8 o'clock, etc., then you can kind of, I think you're a bit more justified in potentially saying something. And what I did once, because I don't know if people know, but I actually live on a high street, so it's. But fortunately, it's kind of partially blocked off. But one day they literally had like a circus, and I'm not even joking, like a fun fair type circus outside, and I was like, oh no. And so I downloaded a decibel recorder on my phone.
Yeah,
just to kind of see is this reasonable? And it was within, well, technically, it was legal. Within levels of legalness, whatever the phrase is. So yeah.
Was that within normal hours though? At least it wasn't like outside.
Kind of, yeah. It was, to be fair. It was like 7 o'clock-ish, I think, or 7 o'clock. So for me, I was getting etchy, because I was like, oh, this is approaching late for me, but probably for everybody else, it's just normal. So Yeah.
What are your wake and bedtimes at the moment, out of interest?
So I think I'm similar to you, minus an hour, basically. So I
Okay.
will try to be in bed between 9:30 and 10 o'clock. That's my kind of like window.
Yeah.
And then I'll try to get up between like 5:30 and 6. So roughly, or probably a little bit later than that, depending. So
Yeah, I allow myself a bit more. I'm an hour later than you to bed, but I wake up later than you as well. So I give myself a little bit more sleep opportunity. And I know that's something we're constantly like trying to work on with you, but
I know.
sometimes there's only so much you can do. I have clients where it's just like they have to, I don't know, collect their kids from somewhere at this time, then they have to train, and then they have to have dinner. And then by the time that's happened, they've got like an hour before bed, and then they have to wake up at like 5 a.m. for clients or something, because a lot of our clients are personal trainers. So
I have been a lot better recently, actually. So yeah, it's getting better for sure. But one thing that you made me think of actually when you spoke about Ada was, I think it's another sign that you've come a long way, because in your 2021 prep, I can remember you kind of like getting irritated by Ada quite a lot. And
I am big time. It's really, I said to Charlotte, like, I'm struggling to see the pros of Ada right now. I'm just seeing cons. Like, she is so irritating. Like, she follows me. The worst thing is with a dog, especially one that's very food driven, which Ada is, she follows me everywhere because I eat relatively frequently, like 4 times a day. So she's often, she knows the times I normally eat. So she's hanging around me every single meal, basically. And like, as if I walk downstairs, I'm not even eating. I'm just going to walk downstairs and get a drink or something. She'll follow me. And I'm just like, because you're in this moment of like some competitors, and when you're getting this lean, you almost food guard in a way, because it's just a typical human response to starvation. And so when she's like just sat there looking at me, like begging for food, and I'm just like, I'm starving here. Like, don't do this to me. Yeah. So it's bad. I hate that part because I'm not doing better this time with it. She is, every little thing that could be irritating is extra irritating. So I really take my hat off to parents who have like with their children. It's probably a bit different because you have to be like, with a dog, they don't know if you're like saying they're annoying or whatever, but you can't be that way with a child. So it's probably also bad because it allows me to indulge being like, shut the hell up. But like, I can do that to Ada because she doesn't know what the hell's going on. But with a child, I could imagine some competitors end up snapping, and then really like, that's not cool. I gotta like control that. Anyway.
But it's a great, in a lot of ways, having a dog is like having a child in so many ways. It's probably the only slight level down is just like you said, where because they can't understand you as well, you could probably get away with saying things. But I think animals, they can still sense the intonation of your voice. So if you were to say something quite aggressively, they'd probably still sense that, I can imagine. So there's
You'd
still
hope.
maybe you'd hope, maybe not.
She just thinks I'm playing, I swear.
Yeah, no, it's like, it's such reverse psychology, isn't it? Where you kind of, the more angry you get, the more happy and the more they want to play with you. And you're like, this isn't working.
The worst is, so yeah, because as a typical example, if I had the door open, often when I jump onto a podcast, start talking, she'll run in here and start jumping at me, which is the most annoying thing ever because I'm trying to concentrate on the podcast. When I'm off season, I'm just like, yeah, it's fine, whatever. I just kind of push her away. Whereas now I'm like, I like forcefully like push her down, like whatever. Not to hurt her, of course, but I'm like, clearly I don't want you here. And she just doesn't get it. She just keeps coming and I'm just like, come on, give me a break. But yeah, anyway, the me and Ada relationship, it will improve. And yeah, it's something I have to just try and be cognizant of. And I think that's the same for like, even in my local gym, some people who I'm not friends with or anything like that, but I'll interact with for sure. And I'll be smiley and maybe we'd have a bit of a chit chat. And I just know the last few weeks as it's got tougher, I've gone more and more insular into myself. But even little things like probably on WhatsApp and communicating maybe even with yourself, Mike, and like other friends, I just have gone inside myself where I'm just like, I just don't have the capacity and I don't want to give energy elsewhere. So I sometimes worry that people in that gym now like think I don't like them, or like I've like something's up with me, and sometimes wish I'd say something ahead of time, just be like, by the way, I'm getting into like the thick of prep now, so if I look grumpy or I'm not like interacting, it's just because I'm conserving energy, not because I'm like dislike you or something.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's, I think, a thing after you've done, I think, at least one prep, both as yourself and, yeah, both as yourself. One, you know that it's not something that's going to last forever. So when it comes to things like AIDA, you know, like, right, I know that this is temporary and I know it's not going to last for long. And I know that, you know, I just need to be kind with myself, try to make sure that it doesn't get too out of control, and that this relationship will change as I come out of the diet. But equally, when you've done it yourself, you know, like I know, right, hey, whatever, you know, Steve's a little bit blunt in his message, I know it's not personal. I know it's just the fact that, hey, he's deep right now. He's deep. So, you know, just kind of, you know, it allows you to appreciate that, I think, to a certain extent. And what's actually quite funny / interesting was in our check-in this week, or it was on a Tuesday, and you were very like to the point. At least I perceived it to be. And then I saw obviously on your story that was your really hard day, where it was like, you know, you were struggling that day, and I was like, again, that makes sense. So yeah, I think you've just, again, it really helps if you've gone through the process at least once before. Yeah.
It's funny. It's something I never want prep to impact my work or to impact other people. But I think there are some things where it just creeps in and you can't stop it. And it's just about managing it effectively. So, for example, with your check-in there, I would hope that I still like did my job in terms of being your coach, and maybe I cut the fluff and it wasn't like there was things that I like skipped over or I didn't listen to or anything like that. But I have found myself in some people's check-ins, especially like, I don't know, say someone's struggling dieting. Normally I might be a bit more empathetic to their situation. And I will say, like, I might be being a bit more blunt than usual because I'm in prep, but it might not be a bad thing. I was just like, I've actually said that because sometimes people need like a bit more of a like kick up the arse. And yeah, when you're in prep, I think you do lose, or you become a bit more apathetic, right? And so you lose a little bit of empathy for those sort of situations. But the thing I was trying to bring up was I am aware of it. So I also highlight it quite often, where I'm just like, if I'm being a bit more blunt, it's probably because of prep. But again, it might not be a negative in those sort of situations. And also you mentioned, yeah, like you'll know because of where I'm at. I try to, with closer relationships, I try and be ultra aware of it. So like with Charlotte, I try and like really be aware not to let it impact that. But she's also aware that it might. So then because I'm ultra aware, it kind of brings it up, and then she's also aware of it. So it's almost level. It's not like really doing anything negative to the relationship, but it's other messages on like Instagram where maybe I'll bit more to people I don't know. That's where I'm probably extra blunt, where I'm just straight to the point. Or even like, I don't know, it could be a Q&A and someone asks a question, I'll just be like straight down the line, and people will be like, like that's so funny that your personality changes in that way.
But it kind of, firstly, I think that we're all human, right? It doesn't matter what time of the year, whatever phase it is, we all make mistakes. And I think it's not the mistake necessarily that's the important thing. It's like, can we recognize it and can we apologize? So it might be like, hey, in the moment something happened and you just kind of just sort of flipped, so to speak. But then, okay, you recognized it afterwards, and then as soon as you could, you then apologized about it. I think there's nothing wrong with that. And I think people appreciate the fact that, oh, hey, you know, Mike recognizes that he did something wrong and he apologized, you know, genuinely for it. I think, do you know what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that, because we're all human at the end of the day. But then coming to another point is that it always reminds me of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And we say this a lot, but when we're in prep, particularly deep prep, you are literally survival mode. And so your brain, your body is literally, hey, the emotional lovey-dovey energy, that's, you know, that's a luxury. We're taking that away. We're focusing on food. We're like base of the pyramid right now, and that's where you're at. And so, you know, it's very normal not to have that that excess available for other people. And like you said, you've got to, whatever surplus you've got, or whatever, budget that you've got for that day, you've got to spend it on the people that matter and those relationships. So it makes total sense.
So right. And I wanted to reflect on that point you also mentioned, where you can apologize for your behavior, because that is something I've been, I don't, if I was doing it a ton, it's like that's like, you need to work on not needing to apologize all the time. But sometimes it has happened, I think once or twice with Charlotte, where I've just been a bit more like shutting her down or whatever it is. And then, I don't know, I'll go for a walk, I'll come back, I'll apologize. But it also happened in the gym. And again, it's very rare for me to be like this. And I know people are in the gym who are always like this. I was in the middle of like a Meyer rep calf set. And the calf machine is like, the one where you pass through Yorkies from room 1 to 2, and it's that calf machine in the corner. Yeah. So I was on there and I was like in pain within the set, and I was just resting a short period of time to go into my next. And I could notice someone hovering right by me. And I just was like, I'm just continuing because I was within this like Meyer reps. And then as I continued, and they like pushed themselves like into my zone and wanted to get like some blocks by me. And I was just like, just yes, fine, take it. I'm in the middle of a set. And I was like, oh, Steve, you wouldn't normally react like that at all. You would have probably, if I saw someone in my periphery, I would have just stopped my set and been like, go on then. At the same time, sometimes I'm like, a little bit of that. Like I also understand it's why other people might just be like annoyed by someone disrupting their set like that. So anyway, I apologized to her the next day when I saw her, and she was like, I know you're dieting right now. It's totally cool. Like I did disrupt your set, whatever.
That's cool.
Yeah, stuff like that.
And again, like in that scenario, I would like to think that for the majority of people, there's a bit of a gym etiquette where if you can see someone's in the middle of a set type thing, you'd kind of wait at least until they're finished completely before you either go up to them or go around them or something, or at least give them a bit of space. But again, sometimes people aren't aware of that. And I think, again, I think it's normal to sometimes be a bit reactive, but hey, if they come back up to you afterwards and apologize, hey, do you know what? There's absolutely nothing wrong with that. And I don't know if I told you this, but obviously sometimes when I'm training, I look like I'm struggling quite a bit, and some people, they like to help, they like to spot if you see someone's grinding. And I remember I was doing a set of bicep curls, and I was getting to that last set, and I was grinding, and someone came up and literally just ran up to me and then helped them on the way up. And then I literally went, no! And you could see like his eyes went wide open, because I was literally, it was that split second before you have a chance to catch yourself, and I couldn't react. And I was literally he just caught me at the wrong moment, and I totally let it go on him. And then I was like, and then afterwards I just felt terrible. And before I left, I was like, look, I'm so sorry. I just kind of didn't catch myself. And, I genuinely just don't like people spotting me, and I look like I'm struggling, but I'm actually fine. But yeah, so again, like it happens to everybody. But the most important thing is that, hey, we recognize we're wrong. And sometimes, do you know what? Even if we're not wrong, I think, say like we might get into a disagreement with someone, sometimes there's no use in trying to argue. Even if you think, hey, do you know what? I think I'm still right in this situation. Hey, just, apologize, let it go. There's nothing to be gained from getting in an argument. And they often say, anger doesn't help anyone, anger actually probably hurts the person getting angry than it does anybody else. So, it's just no point in, getting angry, losing from that emotional energy. Just let it go, apologize, and then, hey, go on with your day.
I think that situation is, I totally get it, especially because when you're in those final reps of a set, you are having to get aggressive and get that kind of ape side of your brain going. And so when someone kind of disrupts that, you're kind of angry in that moment, like you're going aggressive. So it's so normal to then react. I've only ever had it once where someone like came to spot me for some leg press reps, and I was just like, I didn't say anything. It never happened again, because like It's the same as you. I don't actually, personally, it's funny. I was speaking to Tim, who you know, one of my clients who trains in the same gym as me, and he really does well when people like observe and like spot him for a set. He likes that. That allows him to push harder, which I understand because maybe it makes you feel more safe. Maybe those eyes on you are like surveillance, and it's like, oh, I'm going to like make sure I push extra hard. I don't know how you are with this, Mike, but when I have someone hovering over me, and they could be just hovering watching, or they could be like, I don't know, surveilling or spotting me, I tend to find that as like, it almost produces a bit of anxiety in me, and I'm better just solely on my own. Let me like blinkers on, get into my own world. I don't know if you're the same as me or you like having someone there.
No, I'm very much the same as you. Just from spending the entire time I've been training, just training on my own. I've always trained on my own, and I think that's the thing. I think consistency. So if someone's in the background, like for example, if I'm training with someone that day as a, special thing, as long as they're like there, but they're not doing things. But I think when definitely someone is not there and they enter into my periphery, that is really off-putting. But I'm pretty much the same as you, really.
Is there anything on your end you had in mind that has happened over the last month that you wanted to update people on? I know, were you judging at another MPA show?
Yeah, so what was it? The 1st of September, which was, I think, 2 weeks ago now. It was the MPA British Finals. It was a really, really, really good event. And so the person who won the overall and the men's middleweight and men's classic, I think was Christian Kerr, which was great. And there was a lot of good physiques there. And it was just a really good day. So again, another good opportunity from my perspective to be at a show, connect with people, to get some experience judging again, which was fantastic. And it was a good day. And I think something also which I continue to appreciate is when you volunteer at events, it really gives you an appreciation for what goes on in the background. Because I arrived and the venue for the British Finals is quite an old theatre, and they've got a very
HMV, is that it?
That's right.
Yeah.
It's been there for a long time, actually. I didn't realize, but apparently it's been there for a long, long time. And they've got this really old elevator, and the guys obviously that were first to arrive, they put the stuff in the elevator, and what do you think happened?
Broke, yeah.
Yep, they got stuck halfway, and they were literally like, right, all of the stuff, like the stuff that you go to put on the stage, the registration detail, like everything was in there. And it was like, you literally can't do anything. So, but fortunately, they managed to get it working, but they had to delay by half an hour or an hour. And so again, I think sometimes as an athlete or when you go to compete there, the show might be overrunning or whatever. And it's so easy to get frustrated, but sometimes you just don't know what's been going on in the background. And again, like I remember at the WNBF first timers this past year, it was a new venue, and the staff and the sound crew were just getting used to things, and they couldn't quite get the sound going. And so again, it just delayed the show starting. And again, it's so easy as a competitor to just think like, oh, this is rubbish, what's going on? And it's like, hey, do you know what? Stuff happens, shit happens. You just you don't know what's going on behind the scenes. And I think it just gives you that appreciation for, hey, it's normal for shows to overrun. There's stuff probably going on in the background. Hey, just focus on my game.
Yeah, it's one of those where I know on my show day plan for clients, I think I call it like a repeat meal, or that's what I kind of mean by it, where it's like every 2 hours eat this sort of setup of macros, because you just never know how long that day could end up running for. And if you run out of food, it's just not ideal. It shouldn't be the end of the world because you should be peaked. You should just be resting. And I mean, you can maintain full glycogen levels for, I can't remember, but like over a day if you're not kind of actively burning through them particularly. So if you're just sat on your feet, like resting and chilling, like just stay in your own head. Nothing awful is going to happen. And you're so right. And it's something every time I compete, I'm abundantly made aware of how show days never run exactly how you want them to. So even if they give you a timeline, which some do. Like they give, and I've had clients who give me like, oh, I'm going to be on stage at 3, and I'm like, yeah, maybe that'll be, it could be 5. Like it seriously could be. So you never know how it's going to go, especially in large shows. Like I know the UKFBA Heart of England just happened kind of the past weekend, right? And I know some people were on stage at like 10 p.m. And actually the first time I did the UKFBA finals, second. So in 2017, when I did that, I know I was on stage at like 9, 10 p.m. on that day. And I mean, most of us in prep are thinking about bed at that sort of time, I think. So you then have to go up there and perform. So it is challenging. And I also always say this is why often like a lot of the best looks you achieve aren't necessarily even on show day. Like you try and peak your best for it, but there's so many variables to try and manage. And it's really, why you don't want to like do anything crazy or wild, because it's hard to maintain a look sometimes for like, depending on the way that you've changed variables. Like if there's many things changing, it's like, oh, that could be like going through a curve of processing, and then it's kind of occurred at the wrong time for another. If you're manipulating like sodium and fluids, and it's like they're all moving, so you don't want too much going on. Anyway, so I'm glad it was a good event, and judging, I'm glad that was like you've enjoyed judging and doing all of that.
I absolutely love it. But I wanted to just pick up something that you made me think about then was, when often your best shots are not when you're on stage. I think that's a really important point for people to remember, both for yourself, but when you're looking at other people, because it's easy to go on social media and you see these incredible photos and you're like, hey, they might not be looking like that on stage. So don't get focused on it, So I think that's really important for people to remember, both for themselves and for others.
I know for you, your best shots probably were on stage because you didn't really take the time to, do some gym shots, and your setup from home wasn't like, it's same with my setup here. It's not like, they're not my best shots. Like they're very, very honest shots. So I think people might see those and maybe they underestimate me. Same with you. I just remember seeing one of your MPA. Oh, what's happening in the background?
Sorry, I don't know why my phone's ringing. Like this is probably something like my gran who doesn't know like what's going on. So, sorry.
That's all right.
It should go off in a second. Sorry about that.
Anyway, then I was like, "Is there a fun fair outside again?" It sounds like it. When I still look at it, your first show, I think it was the MPA where you went pro. And you had a most muscular, and I was just like, the hands class most muscular, that shot for you. You should use it more often because it's wild. Like it's a great shot. So? Yeah, it's lovely. I was just like, when I saw that you sent it across, I was just like, because we hadn't had you under particularly great lighting or really good conditions. I know that was something we were working on. I was like trying to see your physique a bit more clearly, and so. Yeah, you can have it both ways. You can have people hiding, like who don't even post on social media or whatever it is. So, what counts is on stage, basically, is what we're saying.
It's such a balance, I think. I probably tried everything I could have thought of to make the lighting as good as possible, and in the end, it was even the best wasn't probably great. But I resorted to literally having like a permanent black sheet over my windows to try and equal out the lighting and stuff. But, I think the most important thing is just consistency. As long as the lighting's consistent and you can try to do your best to compare like for like and just do your best, I think that's all you can do at the end of the day.
Do you not see the progress you would like? Are you sick of writing your own programs? Or perhaps you need some accountability in order to stick with a plan? Then it's time to start working with us. We at Revive Stronger offer a truly personalized coaching service. You'll get more than just an email with some macros or random cookie cutter program. With Revive Stronger, you will be the center of our attention. You will receive your own fully individualized training protocol alongside a customized nutritional strategy. We created the coaching around your needs, wants, personal preferences, and your own unique lifestyle. Every single week, we delve into your program in order to make appropriate adjustments so that we we get the most out of your time and the best possible outcome. We help both female and male athletes to seriously change their body composition by adding more muscle mass and decreasing fat tissue. Additionally, you get access to our exclusive Revive Stronger member site, where you'll be able to watch over hundreds of hours worth of educational content. No matter if you're a competitive bodybuilder or just want to look better, if you need help with your progress and taking your physique to the next level, our coaching is for you. It's time to make a change. Sign up today and let's revive stronger.
Yeah, it's something I've been thinking about with some of the travel that I'm going to have to do to compete. Is I've got the light that I use here. When it's all set up, it's huge. Like it's a big light. It's like taking up this much space. There's no way. But I think I need to see what it compresses down to. But I'm hoping I can take it with me, like in a bag. It's probably the size of like a weighing scale and then a tripod. So okay. I'm hoping I think it will collapse down to being relatively small, and that'll be nice because then if I can get a relatively blank background, use that light, it does then bring that consistency, because that's something, as I do this more with clients, where I'm like, oh, we'll be able to find some lighting like in your hotel room, whatever. And then sometimes they just can't. And it's the same actually, something with Cliff and his peak weeks. He's just given me some data for one of mine, and he's very prescriptive, like to the foods you're eating, to the minutes that you're eating, like very prescriptive. And sometimes I think the way that I end up peaking people, I'm really trying to keep it to their normal schedule of eating, but sometimes I worry that it allows for too much degrees of freedom. And so it's the same with like this lighting setup. Like the more prescriptive I can be, maybe that's better. And that's something I'm learning from Cliff, is like he's being very prescriptive during that peak week. Maybe that's a good thing, because it just allows for, I don't know, there's no fucking around. And some of your clients, they might take like opportunities to fuck around where you don't even realize. For example, I don't know, you bring up their carbs and they're like, I'm actually going to make that into, like, I normally have oats, but I'm going to do it with whey, and I'm going to make some protein pancakes, and then I'm going to put some Walden Farms on there, and Walden Farms like calorie-free syrup or whatever. But suddenly that's a load more sodium, and that's a different food they haven't been having. And then you're like, I like, you can be as prescriptive as you want, like don't add anything new, but people will like take opportunities to potentially do something like that, especially in like a peak week and food is up. So it's making me think, during the period of time when we want as many variables under control, which I do try, and I definitely do. And I mean, my peaking methods definitely work well, but I'm like, is there anything more I could change to make it even more controlled during that period of time? Probably. So that's something I'm taking on, and another reason I'm kind of have Cliff in my corner to make me learn and do things maybe I wouldn't have done with myself. So that's exciting. I don't know how I got to that after talking about lighting.
it makes perfect sense. And I think the thing that springs to mind when you say that is, I think it really depends on the person, the type of person, and also the context. So for people like you and me, where we like a bit of structure, we like detail and guidance to a certain degree, I think we like that sort of thing. So if someone gives us a very prescriptive thing, we don't necessarily mind that. We quite like it. And also for us, we want to absolutely like do the best that we can, want to reveal our best self. Like our goals are high when it comes to, bodybuilding. Whereas I think someone who needs a bit of flexibility, and they need that kind of, they need more flexibility, then they won't thrive off of that. And equally, I think, and also if maybe it's their first show, or maybe, their aspirations in bodybuilding aren't necessarily, top, they just are looking to have a bit of fun or whatever, see how it goes, then again, I don't think you need to be ultra prescriptive. And if anything, that sort of approach might hinder or take away some of the enjoyment that they might be getting from that show. So I think you have to be flexible depending on the client in front of you and the context that they're in. Yeah,
very true. I think with Cliff, he obviously works with a certain type of person, probably more often people like me who are very serious. It's not their first season. They're looking to be their absolute best. So he knows anything he gives that person, basically they're going to follow it to the T. Mm-hmm. And so he can have full confidence in that. Whereas if you have a very prescriptive but quite complex and challenging plan to follow in the wrong hands, that could just lead them to being very stressed, very anxious, not committing to it, and then just throwing it out, and that won't work for them. And so it makes sense. The person I tend to work with is more on the first time they're doing it. They don't have the skill set in place to be able to nail things as closely as maybe I would prescribe them in such a situation. But yeah, the more competitive and serious people I will begin to work with, which I am, I think I'll use more of the tools that I'm picking up from Cliff, because yeah, some of the things that he's got me doing in the peak week, I think years ago definitely would stress me out quite a lot. Whereas now I'm like, these are going to be stressful. It's going to be hard. It's something that makes me uncomfortable, but I don't think that's a bad thing. And I think I'm going to be able to manage it. Well, we'll see. But yeah, it's kind of exciting to be put out of my comfort zone. It is going to be a rapid backload that I've got going on. So yeah, that will be interesting to see how that goes. The number of carbs actually that he's at the moment got planned in there doesn't make me worried. People often go, he's like 1,000 grams of carbs, but I've done similar numbers to these before. I'm at like 800 or something on that day. So yeah, it'll be exciting to see how it all runs.
Has he got did he put any contingencies in there, or like, so if the show's delayed or whatever, if X happens, what should I do in that scenario?
So not so much. This is something that I think, and I'm hoping our communication speed is going to be pretty. Yeah. He actually has a repeat meal in there. He has like, hey, have this. Sure. And it's similar setup to how I have it actually with my clients. It's like, hey, have this for breakfast, have this many hours out, and then have this as like a repeat meal. He has a very similar structure to that. But I kind of asked him some questions about it, because according to the schedule I have, I'm meant to be on at a certain time, but that's obviously could change. But the first meal would be like midday then. And I'm waking up at like 7 a.m. That's a long time to not be having anything in my system. So I messaged him about it. He was like, it's like all subject to change. And the thing that concerns me a little bit, and I don't know how he's going to manage this, is normally I'm up a lot earlier than him because of the time difference. And normally his replies come to me in the middle of the night. But he's given me his WhatsApp to have for nearer to the show time. So I'm guessing he'll be a bit more on it with that. So yeah. I know he takes his like competitive, the peak weeks really seriously. Like I know that's his thing, right? So
definitely
it'll just be interesting to learn about that whole process, how he goes about it. And that's, again, like I said, one of the reasons I wanted to go with Cliff is like, as far as I'm concerned, he is the guy to go to for like peaking. Yeah. And so if I can learn from anyone, yeah, he's the guy I want to learn from.
Do you know what? It's really interesting because so Tom Hall, one of your clients, he recently said to me, and it's probably been said somewhere else, that sometimes the best coaches are the ones that are just a few steps in front of you. And I think that's quite nice, because I think sometimes if you've got a coach who is 10, 20 steps ahead of you, maybe decades more experience than you, then they can't necessarily relate to you on the whole level. It's like, again, if you've been driving for decades and someone's learning to drive, you're probably not as forgiving of them as someone who's only a couple of years, past their test. And similar to you now, where, you're learning from Cliff, who's used to coaching pros and or helping people get their pro cards. And now you're transitioning from, not just coaching their first timers, but actually coaching people who are serious in their bodybuilding prep. And again, now you're learning from Cliff. That's going to really help you not only handle yourself better, but handle clients who've got that next level aspiration as well. So I thought that was quite cool.
Yeah, I didn't really think about it like that. Like it wasn't a purposeful thing, but when you mention it like that, that's so true. Because that is exactly like I have yourself. You're obviously an MPA pro, but you have aspirations to go pro with, say, the WNBF, like I do. I have Eric, who's competing next year. I don't know if you've seen Eric online, but he is a big guy. I'm going to be very excited to see how he leans down and what his physique how it starts developing. But he has great potential. He wants to go pro in the WNBF as well. It'll be his first season, so to do it in his first season, it'll be very good. But he's very competitive, high level athlete, and he has been all his life. And then obviously Rob, I have on my roster. I might forget clients, but forgive me. But I know Robin, for example, I obviously took him through his season in like his recent season, and he was like on the cusp of going pro, and now he's kept with me throughout the off season, and we're going to go again. So it is like I'm starting to have these handful of very serious competitors who need that potential next level of like attention to detail. Can we level them up in like those 1%ers, which a peak week might provide, are going to give to them? So yeah, it's cool that I'm also there, so I can then transfer that kind of information from my experiences too. So yeah, that's great.
I also think of like it reminds me of Formula One. So, you know, if you think of Formula One, it's the epitome of technology. You know, everything is, you know, cutting edge, and they're trying to get the cars to go as fast as possible. But then slowly that technology creeps down to sort of the general cars as well. So, and it's kind of like what you're doing, you're learning from the best of the best, both from an evidence-based perspective on the podcast and with your research, but then also the more art side of things and the visual side of things from Cliff. And then as you're learning that and getting better, you're filtering that down to people like myself, Rob, and so on. And yeah, and then it's just kind of filtering out. So it's very cool.
Yeah, so I think I'm also, one of the things I'll say I'm learning with Cliff is the information that he gathers. I always like more versus less in terms of information, but I think sometimes I do feel overwhelmed with the amount of information I've asked for clients, and then it becomes almost, you know, when you just have too much to look at, and then you need to just pick the things that actually matter. Yes. So with peak week, I would often ask for morning, evening shots, but then also post-workout. And I think that's fine. It's worked really well for me, but sometimes I am a bit overwhelmed with like, hey, I'm just getting so much information. I'm actually, what do I need to like strip it down to the bare basics? And so I know with like Cliff, he's asking for certain photos at certain times, and it's less than I would ask for. And actually I'm like, I think that's going to make it easier for me to gather the exact precise information I need from clients and things like this. So it is learning like, where could I strip back, as well as kind of where can I get more, if that makes sense, which is nice.
Definitely. And do you know what you made me think of just then?
What?
So it's kind of like when you go to this all-you-can-eat buffet, and the temptation is, right, you've got this plate, I'm going to load it with everything, versus actually put a bit on your plate and then go back, you know? So if it's kind of like, right, like you said, take the information you need, maybe take the essential information, and then if you need more, then you can go and get more, or vice versa. Potentially give the client what they need, and then if they want more information, you can then give it to them. And I think that's something quite good. And it's something that I'm trying to get better at as a coach as well, just trying to be a bit more concise, because I think I'm just naturally a waffly person, and I'm always trying to get better at being a little bit more concise, or just being content with, hey, write the message or send the message and then leave it and be content with it.
Yeah, that's something I'm also taking from Cliff, you start to develop that as a coach, where you get more and more confident in what you're saying, and so you don't feel as the necessity to explain every single step isn't there, because you're more confident in what you're saying. And also, you know the things that really matter, and so you start focusing really heavily on those. So you might have a 15-minute check-in from a client, but you could have a 5-minute response time, because they could have waffled or like give you information that was still useful. Like, I'd prefer a longer check-in than a short one that like missed bits, but you might be able to really pinpoint the things that actually matter. And then you're actually better that way, because now a client can watch 5 minutes of just pure like, this is exactly what I need to reach my goals, versus you trying to respond and like cover every single little thing over 15 minutes maybe. And it's like, they've actually missed that, they haven't been able to focus on the things that you really wanted them to nail down. That's something Cliff is very good at, where I might send him a longer email, but he'll respond with like a couple of sentences of just like, okay, these are the things I need you to focus on for this week. Go. And I'm just like, great. You obviously need to, I always make sure a client feels like I've heard them, but at the same time, I don't need to like belabor points, and you'll get better at that And it's just like the same with gathering information on the spreadsheet. You'll just be able to connect the dots a bit faster of what's going on, and you'll get more and more efficient with as time goes on. Where your check-ins, I don't know, my check-ins might initially have taken me like an hour, and slowly I whittled them down, and they might take now on average half an hour depending on the person. Same with like setting up a client. Initially that would take me like, I don't know, ages, hours, whereas now I can probably get everything done in like an hour to set up a client of like from start, looking over their information, creating their spreadsheet, creating the program, delivering the kind of video explaining everything and sending that across. You're just, like any job, you'll get more and more efficient at it, and I think that'll only improve your service as well.
Definitely. Yeah, I definitely notice that as well, where you just get, I try to tell myself that when I'm working with a new client, hey, those first few check-ins are going to be a little bit longer because they're not familiar with the process. You need to explain, reassure a little bit more, go through form videos, etc. But then when you've been working with a client for say like a year or something, you know what their form is like, they know the processes, etc. So some of that extra stuff doesn't need to be done. So I think that's part of it as well. And something else that you brought to my mind as well is that when you're checking in with a coach, you know, a massive part of that is reflection. And so you kind of need to go through the fluff to kind of understand what's gone on in your week. Yeah. And then all the coach needs to do is go, okay, what's the fluff that doesn't need a response? And what's the actual question, challenge, or thing that needs addressing to help this client move forwards? And yeah, and I think that's, yeah, it's just an interesting dichotomy, like you said, that over time, you know, gets better.
I completely agree. Like you'll have this probably, or you'll probably have experienced this, where I'll have some clients, again, they might check in, it'll be like 2-3 minutes, and they'll jump over things. They'll say like, I didn't adhere on this day, my sleep was really bad this day, and I'm going to work on it, whatever. And I'm just like, can you explain to me what happened? Like, can you tell me? And these are the ones where I have to go back and like dig for information. Whereas it's like you said, the clients who just really reflect on everything, they explain everything. It's like, now I have everything I need. That's great. Mm-hmm. And it's also funny because I don't know if you've had this yet with the clients you've been working with, but sometimes I have clients who will be like, is there anything more I could be doing? Do you need even more information? And I'm like, the ones who ask that question are not the ones who need to be asking, because you give me everything. If I'm not asking for more from you, it's because you're giving me everything I need. Whereas if I'm constantly asking, like, what happened here? What is this? Like, how are you going to do this? Then you're the one who, needs the prompts, but it works itself out, right?
Oh, totally. And it reminds me of that saying that says, you know, if you're worrying, you don't need to worry. If you're not worried, you need to worry. Yeah.
It's often the people that need to hear it are the ones that aren't willing to hear it.
Exactly. And it's just, I think it's just such a better way to go. But it's hard because I think, again, it comes back to the type of person they are and stuff like that. And, you know, hopefully what we're working towards is that if you're lucky to work with someone over time, they eventually get better. You know, whether that's, you know, if they're not used to giving too much information, they eventually know, oh, hey, I need to explain to Mike that, you know, about the context of my situation. Or if it's someone in the opposite end of the spectrum that maybe is just used to talking quite a lot, they kind of get a little bit more concise with their day and their check-in. So yeah, but it's a luxury. And, you know, I think we've talked about it before, where as coaches, we should never take for granted working with a client and the trust that clients put in us. At the end of the day, you know, we should always, you know, honor that and see it as a bit of a privilege. So I think that's something important for us.
Yeah. I think this is just something I'd never heard spoken about. And I think you've kind of spoken about it a little bit here. This is one of the benefits of working with a client and a coach long term. Not only does that coach get to know that client better in terms of how they tick, how they respond, like psychology, physiology, like how they best diet, how they best like gain, how the training that they respond best to, the volumes, the exercise selection. But the client also gets better understanding the process of what they need to be doing. They better understand the principles. So the more time you have together on both ends, the better and better things go. So those long-term clients, and we always say this, like they're the best results, not just because of the time, because they also know exactly what they need to be doing. And this is just something I wanted to highlight. People be very aware of the cost of switching programs too often, because you never really get to grips with anything, or change the exercises too soon. You're just relearning everything. If you change coaches regularly, you never really get the best from that coach, because you should be developing together. And then, you get to this really nice position after, I don't know how long it might take, but it might be a year. It might take you to get there. That it's just like, it's just seamless and it works super well for you. It doesn't take much energy for you to get the things done that you need to get done, but you know the process and you're getting everything you need from it. Whereas if every like 3-6 months you're kind of with a coach and you leave them and then you go with another one, it just takes time to really understand what that coach is wanting from you and how, and for them to learn you as well as you to learn the process that you're going through with them. So it's just it just made me think of what you were talking about, where I think people underestimate the benefit of having a coach long term and what you can see from that.
I agree with you so much, because I was actually having this conversation with one of my clients not too long ago, where he wanted to make sure that he was maybe experiencing different ways of coaching and things of that nature. And I was like, absolutely, totally open and happy for you to do that. But I think also, bear in mind that, in general, you're only going to see progress in the long term. And I'd really give things 6 to 12 months at least minimum, for you to really think about what you're, the benefit, to see some benefits from what you're getting from the process. Because exactly what you said, if you're constantly hopping, then you're never giving time to have things to get to fruition. So I think that's just, it's such an important consideration. But it's so tempting, because novelty is just the ultimate temptation. And it's like, it's like the next shiny object. It's like, this looks nice, or I wonder what that coach is doing, and this coach. And you've got to resist that. But no, it's like, hey, can I relate to this person? Do I like their processes? Does that coach kind of vibe with me to a certain level? I think if those factors are in place, like they're competent, you agree with them, their morals, etc., all of that jazz, then I think give it time. And then if it's been like 1 to 2 years and maybe you're not seeing progress. And another key thing which we really emphasize is question, because if you're not sure about something, you're not sure why a coach is doing something, ask, because any good coach will answer you, and then it gives you the reassurance. And also that questioning, by extension, allows both you as a client and allows the coach to grow. Because if the coach can't answer the question, one, it should raise a red flag in that coach's head to say, oh shit, I need to go and read up on my stuff. And then 2, it reassures the client. And if the client doesn't get an answer, that's a red flag in the client's head to go, okay. I think it's so important.
I think once you found like you said, you've got a competent coach that does everything you want them to be doing, like really invest in them for an extended period of time, is really going to pay off. But because I've had it with consultations where clients will say they've had a coach before, but they didn't really agree with some of the things they were doing, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, did you ask them? Or did you just follow the plan to the T? And it's like, I didn't actually ask. I'm like, maybe you should have questioned your coach. And I really encourage you, if you sign up with me, if there's anything you don't understand, if there's anything you're like, why are we doing that? Please ask, because it's exactly as you said. I always say the better you understand the why behind things, the better you'll be at executing the how. Because if it's like, again, with my peak with Cliff, like I can't remember how many questions I sent him. I've sent him a lot of questions and he's come back to me and he was just like, please ask, because the better you understand it, the better it will all go. Because it's just, obviously, with that many small changes, I want to understand that I'm doing things absolutely correctly to how he wants it. But also I was like, I want to learn, like, why are we doing this specific thing? Because then I understand like the processes behind it. I'm not just following it like a robot, which I'm happy also to do because I trust him. But it's the same with my clients. Like I'm not above being questioned. Please do feel free to question me, because like you said, it might like lead to an opportunity where I learn, where I'm like, hey, actually, you asked me about this thing that I do, and I don't have a strong reason for it. And actually what you've mentioned really makes sense. So let's go through that for whatever, like however it is. So yeah, really good discussion point. I'm now trying to think, do you have anything to bounce off me with?
Well, I was just going to say on that note, you know, in the context of you working with Cliff, you are a new client, and so you don't know the exact processes that Cliff does. Whereas, you know, if you were to do like a full improvement season and then do another prep with Cliff, you know exactly what Cliff wants and what he expects.
Yes.
So you don't need to ask those questions again. It's because this is your first time working with Cliff.
Exactly right. Yeah, it's not like I'm going to ask this every time we go through a peak or whatever. It's the first time I've ever done a peak with him. So I just want to understand exactly the reasons behind things. And again, I'm always careful to be like, it's not me doubting you. It's just, I want to learn. And I have clients do that to me too. And it's just like, yeah, that's completely fair. And yeah, it's fun. It's exciting having this opportunity. But yeah, it's why I also have been working with Cliff since the start of this year. So I've basically had a year with him very shortly already. And I'm only like, you learn as you go. Like if I left Cliff after 3 months, I'd have learned pretty much nothing in that time. Like you just get into grips with things. So yeah, I think it's so important. And if you can do multiple seasons as well, as long as that season's gone well with them and you're happy, like you said, they're doing everything they should be on their end, providing the service, like do multiple seasons, because now they know you better than anyone. If another coach has to take you on, or like, again, I've had people reach out to me and they're in the middle of their prep and they've already gone through shows and they want me for their next peak week. So I'm just like, man, unless your like coach is really not great, I'm not going to do a better job than they will for these, because I have to take you from scratch, whereas they've already understood, got the data, and they can improve upon that. So yeah, it's kind of one of those. And yeah, it's that time of the year where all I talk about is prep, which is in some ways fine, but also it's like I'll be excited for more things in life in the future too.
Definitely. You know, there's always seasons that we go through, and you know, and it's normal, I think, for these things to play in your mind, but it's always like, cool, what are we learning from this phase right now? And I think that's always something to try and come back to. It's like, don't get focused on the hard as such. It's like, cool, what am I learning from this process, and how can I take this with me moving forwards? And again, use that, you know, you appreciate that things are going to change and that, you know, you're going to be able to enjoy different things, but equally don't let that be a source for suffering, because you're then like, oh, this is so terrible now and I could be eating, you know, whatever. It's like, no. Hey, where are we now? There's actually there's so much good stuff from this stuff right now, because you're learning so much. Growth occurs from challenge. You know, it feels shit. It's like when you're in a leg press and you're on that 19th rep and you're like, fuck, this is awful, this is painful. It's like, no, you zero in and you're like, right, actually by pushing to that next rep, I'm going to be learning mentally and I'm going to be getting so much more, and I'm going to be knowing that, hey, I'm not going to die. You know, I'm going to be getting better for longer. And it's kind of like you gotta try and maintain that balance and equanimity between not looking too far into the future, not ruminating too much on the toughness, and like, hey, what are we learning and what are we getting from this?
Yeah, very well said. Mike, I'm going to go to the toilet just for a moment. This is how desperate I am in the position I'm in prep.
No worries.
I very rarely ever do this, but I'm going to leave you with a question that you can talk the audience through. And that is your current reading, what book you're currently reading, and some of the biggest lessons that you're taking from that at the moment. I'll be back in literally a minute. Sorry.
Okay. Well, you lucky listeners, you've got me to listen to. So the book that I'm reading at the moment is actually the biography of George Washington, the first president of the United States. And what was really interesting is that, you know, you might think of George Washington as this really, really great figure who could do no wrong, and he was just this amazing person. But actually, he didn't actually, it sounds really strange, but he didn't do amazing things. You know, what he seemed to be great at was empowering people. And he surrounded himself with people who were smarter than him, because he wasn't given, you know, he didn't have an education, unfortunately. So he was very aware that he wasn't a very well-educated person. So he surrounded himself with good people. He wasn't insecure, and he was really balanced. He was really good at bringing sides together, about listening to people, not butting in and saying, like, not kind of saying his viewpoint, but just sitting back, being that balanced judgment, and then bringing those two sides together. And the other thing, the final thing, was that when he was very young, he was very ambitious and he was very driven. You know, he always wanted to be, he was always seeking the highest position in the army. He was always seeking to get as much money as possible, get the grandest estates and finest clothes and stuff. But then as he got into his later years, he was very much humble. He wasn't trying to be the top dog. He was actually, if anything, trying to be very low key. And if anything, that humility was what made people idolize him so much. And I think that's something for us to take away, is that I think when we're early in our bodybuilding careers, we're like, oh, want that first place trophy, want that pro card. But actually, right, let's just come back and be humble with our own processes and our own journey, and do this for us, do this for the sake of just getting better. And moving forwards. And that's The Life of George Washington, which I haven't finished yet, but we're getting there. It's a long book.
I've heard you talk about this book before, so it must be a long book if you're still reading it, because not that I know how much time you dedicate to reading, but it sounds like a decent read at least. And interesting, I like the thought that he's aware enough that he isn't the smartest person in the room, and he doesn't have that arrogance, and so he surrounds himself with smarter people to level him up, because that's a skill set in its own right, where you can build a team of people around you who can like make you better. So again, that comes a little bit back to, I actually had a consultation with a bodybuilder who's very good. He would like has pro caliber physique for sure, and like it's very humbling to get people like that reach out to me, because they're aware how good they are, but they also know how good and educated like I am to be able to help them be even better. Cliff must get that actually all the time, because he works with like the crazy high caliber people. So it's very cool to kind of get into that sort of position, and that makes them a better competitor too, where they haven't got the arrogance of, oh, I'm going to just self-coach myself to stage. It's like, actually, I could be even better if I get someone even smarter, more experienced in my corner. But yeah, Mike, this has been a great chat. Thank you for slotting in there for Mr. Floor, and you might be in there next week as well, because I've got a busy week next week. So yeah, you might be on the podcast a couple of weeks in a row now.
I'll be slotting in for Superhuman Stephen Hall.
Yes. So guys, thank you so much for listening. Do always give us a comment. I know last time people were very fond of you, Mike, so do keep give us that love. I don't know if you saw the comments, Mike, but there was a bunch of nice comments saying that they enjoyed your perspective. Give us a thumbs up. If you're listening at this point, you better be subscribed to all of it, and we'll catch you in the next one.
See you later, guys.
Muscle mass. Sounds too good to be true, doesn't it? It isn't though. It's reality, and we know how to do it, and we will help you achieve this. The Minicut Movement is an 8-week fat loss program to make you lose a huge chunk of fat while maintaining muscle mass at the same time. We will support you from the beginning to the end so that you see the results you would like to and come out of it much stronger. You'll receive a fully automated spreadsheet that is based on your nutritional needs. You can choose between 6 different male and female training templates. Over 30 videos will guide you through each and every single step of the Minicut so that you're getting the most out of your journey and that you always know what to do. But the best thing is that you can start whenever you want. The Minicut Movement is open 24/7. So if you want to learn more or you're ready to sign up, hit the link in the description below. So let's revive stronger together.